So you may know me. My name is Crystal Hilton. I'm here today with JR Grounds. Is that Junior?
JR.
JR, okay. JR Grounds and David Tilton, who that name may be familiar, is my father in Indiana, to how I know about this program. So we're here today to talk about the hurricane that has hit and devastated the East Coast, or Southeast Coast, and what is being done, the efforts that are being done to help the people that are out there, the companies that are out there, and get supplies and needs met for people that have been dealing with this. So I'm not sure which one of you wants to start first, but
Yeah, I can kind of you want me to kind of give you the whole history of how we got to here?
well, just who you are and how you got involved in it. We'll start there, and then we'll go in a little bit more detail.
Sure. Yeah, I'm JR talking. Founded CCRT back in 2015. And it was originally designed, I'm a canine police officer. It was originally designed with the idea of empowering and equipping everyday citizens to be better Good Samaritans. When I would get on scene for a car accident, for instance, I may be the first quote unquote professional responder, but there was always, people that may have stopped, or there were people that were driving by and didn't stop. And it just kind of always amazed me at how a lot of people don't help in those situations when they could. So that was the original goal of CCRT, is to give training, help people understand what equipment to buy, help them to understand how to respond if they see something like that, or somebody has a medical incident, in their grocery store, for instance. And you'll see the number 7 in our logo. That comes from the national average. From the time that you dial 911 until a professional responder arrives on the scene, it takes an average of 7 minutes. So our goal was to train, equip, and empower the Good Samaritans to stand in that 7-minute gap until the professionals got there. In 2016 in Kokomo, Indiana, there was a pretty large tornado that went through, did quite a bit of damage. One of our members was on the fire department up there, called us and said they were a little bit overwhelmed, and wondered if maybe we could get a group to go up with some chainsaws and help clear roads and driveways and stuff, so even the ambulances and fire trucks could get to places if they needed to. So we took about 65 people there and spent 3 days there helping them clean up the town. And that was really our kind of first array, if you will, into the whole idea of disaster response. We did a couple more tornadoes locally. We did a small flood locally, helped do sandbags for that flood. And it still wasn't our main thing, but we realized that we could help in that manner because we had a group of people that committed to helping their neighbors. Hurricane Harvey was the first hurricane that we had when that devastated northeast Texas and southwest Louisiana. Again, we got a call and said, "Hey, we kind of heard about your group doing this stuff with tornadoes. Is there any way that maybe you could come down and help us out here?" And that was actually a church group that had asked us to come down and help. So we coordinated with the local authorities, showed up there, fully expecting, we had no idea what a hurricane was, to be honest with you. We thought maybe we could go down and fill some sandbags and clear trees or something like that. And realized real quickly that we were going to need a boat team to do anything there. It worked out pretty well for us. A bunch of duck hunters had showed up. So the FEMA wouldn't let the duck hunters go in with their boats because they didn't have any training or any type of communication or anything. So we kind of partnered up with them, and FEMA let us use their boats and let them drive the boats for us. So we effected over 750 rescues for Hurricane Harvey, did quite a bit of humanitarian aid. We actually worked with the National Guard, set up a field hospital to treat patients And because of that, we started up a full-size disaster relief, disaster response group, 501c3, fully volunteer. 100% of all the money that we raise goes back into our mission. And started doing more stuff with hurricanes, tornadoes. With basically, I focus on anything east of the Mississippi, primarily just because we're based in Indiana, so it's hard for us to get to California if something happens, for instance, right? We've done quite a bit. We were the only crew that was available in Hurricane Florence. We were the only ones in position to help a community that was getting ready to go underwater. We responded to that, effected rescues on everybody in the town. Happened to be an Associated Press photographer on the banks when we were pulling people out. Took a picture. That picture went viral, 85 million views at one time. It was featured by Walmart in their Super Bowl ad. We ended up on the cover of Wall Street Journal, the center of Time magazine. So we've had some pretty good exposure, but the goal for us again still is to make sure that every dime that we raise, every piece of equipment that we raise goes directly back into the mission. We don't, nobody takes any salary. Even our operational expenses are covered through work that we do on a local fundraising event here. So when we do something like this and we raise money, we can put it right back to where it needs to be. So that's probably the longer than you asked for explanation of how we got up to Hurricane Helene.
Thank you. And David, how did you get involved?
I actually met the local commander here in Indiana, and he gave me his business card. I sat on it for 3 or 4 months and thought I was just going to look into it. And I looked into it. I joined. The first class I had was how to suture a wound. That intrigued me, and I progressed from then. I became an EMT, an emergency medical technician. I am with the local volunteer ambulance service here, and I've responded to 4 different disasters with CCRT. Their training is absolutely spectacular. They introduced me to wilderness medicine, and got certified in that. And these people are great people, and they go and they pour their hearts out. And pretty much, if you have breath in your lungs, they will take you and use you wherever they can be used. And again, just in this particular situation, I was 3 days dispatching airplanes from local airports to go down and drop off supplies. And again, the response was absolutely fabulous. I believe all told we had 160, 170 pilots that volunteered their time, their gas, their airplanes, and then another 50 helicopters once they got down there. The airports, they opened up hangars for us to drop stuff off and then just load one helicopter after another. So it was really a wonderful experience, and I'm glad to be part of CCRT.
You both have said CCRT, but nobody has told us what the acronym means.
So it stands for the Civilian Crisis Response Team.
Thank you. Okay.
And if you look us up, it's 7 CCRT, and the 7 is the 7 minutes it takes for the average first responder to respond to an accident.
It's good to know. Okay, so give us an update on where you are currently with your work on this particular hurricane, and then also, I guess, an update on what you've done leading up to now.
Sure. So when this very first happened, we we're monitoring obviously stuff in Florida because that's where the hurricane was supposed to be devastating. And over the years, we've kind of focused on rescue efforts is really where we focused at. So we've got several boats. We've got teams that are swiftwater and floodwater rescue certified. And then we've got a pretty big chainsaw crew to, again, clear up downed trees. And then provide immediate medical support for the local fire departments and EMS agents. So that's really what we'd focused on. And when this hit, we kind of had originally stood down because it didn't hurt Florida like we thought it would. One of our instructors actually was from North Carolina and had moved back to North Carolina last year. And he was teaching a class in Dallas. And when this hit, he couldn't get a hold of his family. And they were right in where all of this flooding and everything was happening. So he had started to drive back, could not get back into the area. He put a desperate plea out on Facebook asking, is there anybody that has a helicopter that could get me to my backyard? I need to check on my wife and my 2-year-old daughter. And a guy volunteered and said, "Hey, I'll fly you." So made contact, was able to get his family. Everything worked out real well there. And then he vastly realized at that period of time there was a lot of other stuff that could be done. And the only way that we could really do it was by helicopters. So he started recruiting everybody that he possibly knew with a helicopter to start delivering supplies. And called me up and said, "Hey, we need to get as many supplies into this area as we can. The only way we're going to be able to do it is by aircraft." So I honestly figured we might end up getting a semi-load of supplies donated. And I figured I could get 3, 4, 5 airplanes to take that stuff down to North Carolina, and he'd probably have a couple helicopters, and we would make a dent, but maybe not a huge dent. Put that request out on Facebook, and as David already said, we ended up with 156 fixed wing airplanes operating out of 18 airports to deliver goods down there. And 50 some helicopters there delivering the goods once they landed. Then we've shifted to trucking it down now that we can get there via road. Last I counted a couple days ago, we delivered over 1 million pounds of supplies there. We've shifted our operation now. We had pretty much made contact with everybody in kind of our geographic area that we kind of took responsibility for, made sure they had stuff like, toilet paper and food and dog food and diapers and all of those basic necessities. So what we've done now is we have secured a large warehouse space in the Asheville, North Carolina area, and we're continuing to take the supplies that we've already got donated there. And then we've set up community hubs in all of the little local kind of, pockets of residents. And we've worked with local chambers. We've worked with community centers, churches, fire departments, so that they can now continue to be kind of the distribution center for these items out to their area. So the fire department will have, basically turn a bay into a pseudo, department store. Residents can come in there. They can track who needs what and everything. And then when they run out of toilet paper, we can then go to our warehouse and restock that fire department with toilet paper. So that's kind of the idea of it now. We had a great support in our donation raises. We worked with various different businesses. We had, a lot of small companies that would step up and say, we'll buy $5,000 worth of toilet paper, or we'll ask all of our employees to bring something in tomorrow and drop it by the by the front desk, and then we'll bring it to you, or bring it to one of the airports that we were flying out of. So we had just an enormous outpouring of support like that. We're still moving the supplies, even though we'd cut off basically taking donations about 10 days ago, because we realized we were we'd met the need that we needed to. We shifted that last week to meet more specific targeted needs. For instance, making sure that diabetics had all the all the supplies that they needed, making sure people that were on oxygen had additional oxygen tanks and hoses and everything, so they didn't have to come off the mountain to get oxygen every 3 days. Working with people that had kind of those targeted needs. So we've moved that. We've met that now. We've got plenty of stock of all of that stuff again in our warehouse to be able to distribute that as needed. So now what we're doing is we are focused on more helping the communities get back on their feet from more like the onesie twosie items. So for instance, one of our fire departments that we'd worked with down there, they'd lost their ambulance and the equipment in that. One of the things that is very expensive on an ambulance is a 12-lead heart monitor. It can be, $12,000. So we were able to use funds to re-equip their ambulance. The location that we were actually using for our base of operations was a Harley-Davidson dealership. They had floodwaters of about 3 foot come through, ruined all their bikes, ruined all their clothing and everything like that. So we basically just moved all of that stuff out and put it on the side of the building because it was ruined. And we turned their showroom into a command center where we had 50 volunteers. It's where our helicopter pilots were sleeping. It's where all of that's going on. But what we would like to do now is help those businesses get back on their feet too. They were instrumental to our mission. But they're going to need things like tools. So if I can, find out what tools they need and go in and buy them a new set of tools. Yeah, they're going to have insurance maybe that covers some of this, but there's still going to be gaps in things that they need. So that's really what our focus is now is we've already secured life and safety, but now we need to get them back on their feet going forward.
Thank you.
Again, I probably talked for longer than you asked me to, but I'm passionate about this. I can talk quite a bit.
That's a good thing. David, do you have anything to add to that? You're on mute, by the way. Okay.
I'd just like to add, besides just transporting stuff down there, we have boots on the ground. We have people scattered all over those areas, and they're doing the dirty work. And it's sometimes tough to do what we do because not everybody's a survivor. And we have had several cadavers that we've had to recover. And it just, nobody wants to do that. But it's one of the hard things that we have to do. Also, when these things hit, it just devastates the individual, and we work very diligently to help as many people as we possibly can. And it's not just transporting stuff down there; it's feet on the ground doing stuff.
Were you involved in a lot of rescues, Tom?
We actually had really good coordination with the National Guard. I know they've not got quite the credit that they deserve in the media, but the National Guard was doing considerable rescues. We did do rescues via helicopters. We also have a pretty good medic group down there, so we were doing some health and safety type of missions as well. We have, as David mentioned, we've got a lot of support that we're doing for K9 teams down there, still doing quite a bit of of checking debris piles and things along those lines. Our chainsaw teams are systematically, taking those debris piles apart and being sensitive to the fact that, there is still a lot of missing people. So when a dog indicates on a pile, we'll, take every precaution necessary to make sure that we don't just push that pile over somewhere, but we systematically deconstruct it and search it. So there is a lot of, manpower that's going into this as well.
What are some of the challenges that you have faced? I know we've seen the news where there's been some not so great reports on people that are angry with FEMA. There's been some issues with access, I've heard, with airplanes and people being told that they cannot fly in supplies. Have you run into anything like that? Is there any challenges that you face that's not been something that's been instrumental or been in the news?
Yeah, I'm probably more middle of the ground on this stuff. Has FEMA been a great resource? Absolutely not. I don't necessarily think it's because of them being evil, like some people would like for them to believe. It's just they are structured totally improperly for something of this magnitude. The size of them, the red tape that they have to go through, the systematic approach that they have to take doesn't work very well for this. They're not nimble enough to deal with some of this stuff. And the problem with that is sometimes they feel like they're losing control, which they are, because again, they can't maintain control of all of this. And on a local level, sometimes that means that they will try to stop people from doing anything if they feel like they can't, keep a handle on what's going on. Again, that's not necessarily bad. It's just the nature of the way that they are structured, and that the way that they are held accountable. So yes, we did have airports that were shut down. We did have situations where they tried to, block supplies coming in. We respectfully moved locations when we needed to, and changed airports and changed stuff, because, I didn't want an adversarial relationship with them, but I also wasn't going to let bureaucratic red tape stop us from helping the people there. So yeah, we've had that challenge. Again, we've had a wonderful relationship with the North Carolina National Guard, had a great relationship with the North Carolina State Police and local and, county law enforcement and fire departments and things like that. The federal response has been a bit of a challenge, yes.
Have you had any other issues with logistics, even getting people, the items, getting to the remote areas because of roads being washed out? And how did you navigate that? This has been something that is totally different than anything that we've done before. And as I kind of alluded to, was not at all expecting the mission to be the size of mission that it would be. Relatively speaking, when you look in the grand scape of disaster response agencies, well, we are tiny compared to Red Cross or Samaritan's Purse or something like that. So our first issue was just the overwhelming amount of support that we got. Being prepared to deal with 5 airplanes and 5 helicopters and a truckload of supplies, and being given, over 1 million pounds of supplies and 150 planes and 50 helicopters, that in of itself creates a massive logistic issue. Luckily, we've got some very smart volunteers that were able to rally very quickly and fix those issues. From a actual physical standpoint, we did have issues even
though we were flying helicopters, because of just the terrain. We would be able to see somebody that would need something, but there would be no place to land a helicopter to even get there. So we've got, luckily, a lot of the people that responded to help us had former military experience. So, sometimes we were putting people on the ground via rope from the helicopter, or we were having to lower supplies by rope out of the helicopters. So the early days were definitely challenging. Now we've got a little bit better access. You've got a full army of everybody that had a bulldozer and a backhoe have been out there making roads. We had, by the second day, we had people that had realized that they were trapped and we couldn't get to them, so they were taking chainsaws down to the side of the road and cutting trees and making landing zones for us. So it's the logistics have been challenging, but somehow we've been pretty lucky in being able to find a way to still make the mission happen.
Thank you. Okay, so now we need to know how we can help. Earlier, before we started talking here, you had mentioned to me that there were needs for cots and some other very specific things that would be beneficial for not only the volunteers, but anyone that you find. Could you go into a little bit about that, and then just how we can help from here, because it's a little difficult for us to be shipping things. It's a little far.
Right. The easiest thing to do would be, either financial donations. Obviously, I hate asking for money. It sounds so cliche, but, obviously that gives us the most flexibility. But if somebody doesn't want to do that, then, doing group buys or doing Amazon buys and having it shipped to us, that would be great. One of the things that we do need, and, I've been kind of remiss somewhat taking care of our own volunteers. Most of them have been sleeping on that concrete floor in the Harley Davidson dealership that I talked about. So just having some cots that people could lay on, some cot pads and stuff like that would be wonderful. That was part of that list that I shipped to you.
And I'll share that with everyone after.
Yeah, that would be great, because that would be awesome. We've got about 75 people literally on the ground there, and they're either sleeping in the floor or in their vehicles or whatever. So that would be great. Plus, we've got residents that we find whose homes are destroyed. A lot of them are sleeping in tents. We did do a push a while back about getting tents and warm clothing and all of that stuff, and we got that need filled pretty well. But then, you learn stuff every step that you do, right? And now we learned that, yeah, that's great, but they're still sleeping on the ground in tents, and when you're in rocky terrain, that's still not very comfortable. So cots, cot pads, warm blankets, pillows. Again, camp pillows, those would go a super long way to being able to help us. And then, again, financial donations. Nobody on our staff takes any salary. Nobody on our staff, gets any money, any way out of this. 100% of the money that we raise goes directly into purchasing the stuff that we need to complete our mission.
And they can find the information on how to donate on your website, correct?
Yes, they can. If they want to do small financial donations, they can go to our website, which is www.thenumber.
So when we're asking for wool blankets, we're talking about, children needing blankets and type of thing, and getting people up off the ground and in a tent or whatever. It's going to be very critical. Otherwise, it'll be very urgent. Very desperate. And so these things are desperately needed there.
Now, is there any need for the propane cans with the little stovetop things that
we actually We actually we had a large corporate donation of the propane buddy heaters and a large corporate donation of the actual small propane canisters. So we're pretty covered on that. That's where we've got really specific on the items that we request because we're working with other organizations and we'll tell other organizations, hey, we need this. We're trying to, we've kind of learned our lesson of telling everybody everything that we need and getting, 7,000 of one item and 2 of another. So we're trying to kind of separate out our request lists by who we're talking to.
That makes sense. Okay. Now, you did mention earlier that there are volunteer opportunities if somebody does want to fly out there. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, if somebody does want to take the 2,000-mile trip or whatever they want to, we would be glad to have them. We would need to do a real quick background check on them just because for the safety of our people that's there and the fact that they're dealing with donated goods, we do safety background checks on everybody. But our warehouse is in a little bit of a disarray. We've got 50,000 square foot there, and it's basically, 50,000 boxes of mixed items. A box may have some toothpaste, a can of dog food, and a box of diapers, and a flashlight in it. And what we're trying to do to make this distribution out to our partners easier is to sort all of that stuff, put everything of a like item together on a pallet, wrap that pallet, inventory that, get a good inventory of everything that we've got. We're also very cognizant about, yes, these items have been donated, but we still have an accountability to that and a transparency to that. So we want to make sure that we do inventory all the items, know what we've got, know where it's going. So that way we can be fully accountable to anybody that requests it. So there's a lot of that sorting, inventorying, palletizing, rewrapping that needs to be done. That's going to take a lot of tedious work that's boots on the ground. You asked about logistics problems. We're starting to run into a little bit of a logistics problem with our members right now. Simply because, again, nobody gets paid. So everybody that has responded so far, they've either shut their businesses down at home or they have taken vacation time, paid time off. Their local companies have given them, the opportunity to go help on this. But we're 3 weeks into this now. So the options for our volunteers to be able to continue to do that is dwindling. So we're going to have to replace the volunteers that have been there for that period of time with new volunteers.
Where would they fly into? I'm not sure if you mentioned where you were.
If they go into Asheville, North Carolina, they will be able to. We'll link up with them, get them to where they need to be. Again, they will either be sleeping on the floor or hopefully by that time cots. So it's not glamorous work, but it's definitely work that needs to be done.
And then you did say, let's see, skip ahead a little bit. You mentioned distributing to the fire departments and churches and other places that are going to get it to people. How are you moving things from the warehouse to them currently?
So we've got some local trucking companies that have donated either trailers to us or some of the more remote areas we're still doing by four-wheel drive or by helicopter. So we're still able to move it in the area. It's getting better from the challenge. More and more of it now is being able to be moved by, a four-wheel drive truck pulling a 16-foot trailer. And hopefully that'll continue to get better.
Excellent. Well, I think that's all the questions I have. Do you have anything else that you would like to share with us about the efforts? And
if nothing else, if people have no other way to help out, If they're on Facebook, our Facebook page is facebook.com/civilian protector. They can go there and read about what we're doing, and just sharing the posts that we're doing can go a long way because unfortunately people are still in need there, and the national media attention has faded. We've gone back onto the latest greatest thing for everybody to fight about. So we're trying to keep the attention on the fact that there's still people there that need help. So something as simple as sharing our Facebook posts may not seem like you're helping, but it really is, because it's getting us more conversations like we're having right now to get us the stuff that we need to be able to help these people.
Thank you. Now, I do have one question for you that's a little bit not related, but as you know, I'm in California, and out here we have earthquakes, and everyone's talking about the big one is coming because it's been quite a while. Do you have suggestions with your background and experiences with the disasters on things that people can be doing on their own to prepare for something like that to happen here?
Yeah, for sure. There are various degrees of preparedness, right? There are people that try to prepare for, full off-grid, living for as long as possible. That's probably not, not easy for people, especially if they live in an apartment or a condo or something like that. But what they can do is think about the stuff for that first 7 days, because it takes a while for even groups like us to mobilize and get stuff to you. So if you've got to go to the store every day to buy something to keep yourself alive or sane, you probably need to think about what can I do to get 7 days of that. And it's sometimes stuff that you don't really think about. I personally treated a nonverbal autistic girl who was having horrible migraines, and her mom couldn't figure out why. But come to find out, this girl drank, 6 Cokes a day, and now she had went, 4 days with drinking nothing but Gatorade and bottled water. So something as simple as a caffeine addiction, it may, be kind of laughable about the fact that we've got a Starbucks addiction, but you go 3 or 4 days without your Starbucks or without caffeine, and it no longer becomes laughable. So just simple things like that. Think about what you need on a daily basis to keep yourself alive and sane, and what would you do if you couldn't get to the store for 7 days to get that? And then try to mitigate that. That would be the thing that I would tell everybody, no matter where they live. That's very, very important.
Thank you. David, do you have anything to add? Yeah, thank you.
Also to live life, without the TV, without the radio, without the telephone, because in disasters like an earthquake, all of that stuff disappears. And it's not like you can pick up the phone and call somebody. Even the landlines go down. So you've got to look at what do I have to do to be self-sufficient for 5 to 7 days. And like they're doing in North Carolina right now, they're a few weeks into this. And if it wasn't for Starlink, they wouldn't have any internet service at all yet. The landlines are still down. And they're still relying on people to bring food in. But those first few days, they had nothing. And story after story of we have nothing. Our whole house is gone. Well, that could happen in an earthquake as well. It's going to trigger mudslides. It's going to trigger dams breaking and that type of stuff. And it's hard to flat out imagine, but it's just if you have 7 days worth of everything you need, that's a really good start.
Thank you. Yeah, we're kind of in a unique situation in the specific town in California that we're at. Is we are only accessible by bridge. So if something does happen, it could get dire here very easily.
Yeah. And yeah, so you definitely need to definitely be thinking about, the fact that you are, even if your house survives, you're totally cut off.
And we do have, for those of you who are listening, we do have a crisis response team here in Foster City. It is called CERT. That's Civilian Emergency Response Team. If that is something you're interested in, please reach out to me and I can help you get in contact with the people who have that organized, so that if something does happen here, we are prepared, and there are various people in every neighborhood that can help others as well. All right, David and JR, thank you very much. I appreciate you giving me all this information. I will get it out as far as I can and advise people of your pages, your website, and everything. So hopefully we can get some help headed your way.
Wonderful.
Excellent.
We certainly appreciate it. And thank you again for helping us get the word out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal.
You guys have a good night.
All right. You too.
Bye.